Storm, a normal gaming podcast that does news, reviews, and Ben spews. This week we're gonna change things up a little bit, welcoming my co-host Ben Slinger.
Thank you. Yep, we're not going to do our usual segments this week. No Ben spews. I know that everyone loves when I spew on about a game that I've been playing, but this week we don't have time because we are doing our top 10 games of the year, games of 2021.
Yeah. I mean, we went back and forth on this quite a while. We haven't even been able to narrow down which out of the top 10 is ranked number 1, which is ranked number 10. It's just like we love them all. So
no, we went back and forth. Yeah, we argued a lot about some games that did make it in, didn't make it in, but this is just our top 10, no particular order. We're going to go through them all and hopefully you agree with us. If you don't, shoot us a review, let us know, tell us in the socials. We love to have a good bit of discourse.
A good bit of discourse in the Discord, yes.
Discourse in the Discord. It's like Panic at the Disco, but more video games.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Ben, why don't you start us off with number whatever? Pick number 1.
Yeah, all right. Our first pick, and look, this one was one of those ones that, we weren't sure if it was going to get in there. But in the end, it did deserve to be in the top 10. It's Awesome Disco Mission.
Yeah, from Psygnosis.
They've come back onto the scene this year with this, really this revolutionary rhythm game. Just involving color and music and
probably the best use of ray tracing that I've seen this year.
That's it. And the ray tracing actually, it had gameplay effects. You had to do things with those reflections. You had to respond to those reflections in the way that the light bounced around the room.
You get hit by that blue ray. You need to do the move for the blue ray. You get hit by the red ray. You need to make sure that you're not speaking at that time. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And look, the best, what I was amazed by really, and what really got this up into the top 10 was how well they managed to get the ray tracing to work in VR.
Who would have thought?
Just an incredible feat of technology. And just the interface there that then sort of tells you what colors you're being hit by at any time so that you can do the correct moves. And then you've got that mirror in front of you, which is doing, they're rendering twice the work. It was incredible.
Yeah, but I think if you actually think about it, I think what they've actually done is they've just done a puppet. So it's just sort of, rather than actually doing the ray tracing for that, because. Yeah,
look, if
they have to cut corners somewhere.
If we want to get into the sort of behind the scenes stuff, and you know that Trevor and I kind of are these hobbyist game developers, so we think about this sort of stuff. Yes, I think you're right that they did sort of fake that as such because you can't get the full ray tracing, 100% in VR. We just don't have the tech yet. But look, they faked it so well that who would know? Who would know really?
Which was your favorite stage? Because mine has to be like that. I know that they didn't call it Studio 54, but it just had that
shouted
out that
sort of 70s feel. Yeah, there was just the just the colors and the carpet and the table. Yeah, that was a good level. I did like the special features that they brought into each level. And so in that Studio 54 level, there were just a lot more sequin sections. So you just had the lights going in all directions. And, obviously then leading up to the disco ball and that just being an amazing, aspect. But no, I think my favorite mission, and I think just because from the ridiculousness of it, was the forest mission.
Ooh. Because I thought you were going to go maybe the pirate mission, but no, the forest mission.
No, a pirate mission. I could at least see them being disco. Pirates could be into disco. Pirates could be into dancing. They like their shanties and whatever.
They can do whatever they like. They're pirates.
But this was you're literally playing jungle creatures dancing to these songs. And just they had the whole band in the background, like the toucan on the drums, just banging away with his beak. And
you heard who they did who they got to do motion capture for that?
Yeah, it was Dave Grohl. It's just like I don't know how they managed to turn his drumming. I don't know if they got him to slam his face into the drums occasionally so that the toucan could use its beak to hit the snare occasionally, but they've nailed it. And I mean, Dave Grohl is the consummate performer. So, that was my favorite level.
Yep. Okay. The Easter eggs. I can't go away without mentioning the Easter eggs and just the amount of references to did you see the lemmings at the back of that forest level?
No, No, I missed that. So they had I don't think I caught any Easter eggs. There were references to other Psygnosis games.
But not just Psygnosis games. It was references all over the place. There was an Austin Powers reference in the Studio 54.
Oh, of course. I mean, I got that. Yeah.
But there were lemmings. There was even at one stage, I think Team 17 or one of the other groups must have helped out a little bit because there was, or even Codemasters, because there were micro machines in
I think
the back of the basement level.
Oh, see, I just assumed they were random cards, but I mean that makes sense then. Yeah. That's cool. That was now I want to go back and replay it and catch all that stuff. I mean, and that's the great thing about a game like that is it is so replayable. Even though they had those sort of story threads running through, with the secret agents and stuff, it didn't really.
I started thinking, is this a reference to Elite Beat agents? Because they did have that kind of feel to it, and then they just went a totally different direction. It was
that's it. And I think because they were always off to the side, so there was that's what I was going to say is that I think because the story is there, but it's off to the side. It adds to that replayability. It's you do want to do those missions again, try to get a better score, try to find all those Easter eggs without that story getting in the way. But if you want, you can follow that secret agent mission all the way through and see them reveal it.
Because I didn't realize this till right near the end. I think it was just after the jungle level. I think it was the laundry level, where the middle silent agent, the one who just never moves or anything.
The tall one, yeah.
He started moving as I was getting better in this sort of, movement, and I was getting right into the beat.
Yeah.
And I swear I saw him move his hips a little bit. And I'm like, I reckon I could go through every single one of these levels, and if I do the right moves all the way, you could actually get, by the end, the middle agent, full on getting
I would love if they worked something that subtle into it. I don't know if you might be reaching there, Trev, but
I don't know. I haven't read anything up on it.
That'd be cool.
Polygon didn't put anything out about it. They didn't go in depth into this game.
There's a lot of good players out there, so you'd think they'd have noticed, but maybe.
Who knows?
Anyway, that awesome disco mission. That's in our top 10. That's the first one we're talking about today. Trev, do you want to give us the next one?
So it's definitely one of these ones that, my first pick for today. I know that we went back and forward on this one a little bit. This one's Portable Execution.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's the one set in the laptop where you're actually executing or terminate and stay residents, it's you're effectively, you're being the task manager. You get to go through, and
this was an interesting one. And I mean, this is right up our alley. Long-time listeners will know, no surprise that this is in our top 10 because we love these sorts of games. Especially the way that, yes, it was all set on the laptop, but they had the full 3D environment around it that would change.
Which is so funny because, it was one of the earliest laptops from the 1990s. Yet it's that juxtaposition of having a early 486 laptop, but having beautifully rendered graphics.
You've got when your character is, or whoever's holding the laptop is sitting on the train, and you've got the lights coming by, and but then going across this very low res, chunky 486 laptop.
I mean, you never would have thought that Unreal Engine would be the perfect engine for a game like this, but it just works I guess, well.
Yeah, when you've got that beautiful 3D background, and then I think Unreal Engine's got some pretty strong UI tools. So that's essentially then what the game's built on. It's all UI. So it makes sense. It makes sense. It's the flexible engine.
What I loved is, you know, the parts where you're playing as the programmer on the train and you're looking into the screen and you see the world rendered behind. Like,
the reflections. This is the year of ray tracing, or at least, fake ray tracing or whatever we end up doing. But no, that was in this case, and there's almost strategy to it at times, you know, or at least, you know, you get to see, it adds to the story. It really adds to the sense of location at any point. The normalcy going on around you while the chaos is happening on your screen as you are, you know, hacking and making these changes to the world from your humble laptop.
But it's the fact that they juxtaposed it with like platforming / RPG elements, you know, inside. Once you made a choice as the programmer, you then got to go in as like the task manager.
Yes.
Doing the execution of these. I loved the relationship between the programmer and the task manager. Like, I mean, it's a bit of a stretch for them to have that sort of AI in those times, but like, it makes sense. Like, you know, we've talked about the movie Electric Dreams before. Like, it's not no worse than that. But yeah, the choice then to do the hacking and the sort of inner computer gameplay as classic platforming was bold, but it worked so well. And adding in some of those, almost Celeste-esque, difficulties. Puzzle
platforming to really make those connections, hook up the different, pieces of code and stuff works so well.
Oh yeah. And didn't you just want the girl, like, sitting, like, 2 rows behind to just fall in love with the programmer? Like,
I feel like they hinted
she kept on looking up at her and then looking back down and looking up at her, and like they'd catch their eyes every now and again.
Well, and again, that was just one of those amazing little things that you wouldn't even notice if you weren't paying attention to it. But yeah, you'd see them making eye contact via the reflection of the screen. That was just brilliant. Like, that's just a brilliant little touch. Yeah.
And just a fun story. Like, never would have thought that a game set on a computer could have such an emotional impact.
Well, like, and especially in that, like, you see a lot of them in somewhat more modern times when you've got a lot of like actual just text chat going on and whatever. But this was all kind of revealed just through the files that you found and the actions that you took. There was no real direct communication with anyone. So yeah, the way that they really revealed the relationships in the story just worked so well. And we're not going to spoil the ending, but I mean,
chef's
perfect.
kiss.
Yeah, perfect landing, basically.
Yeah.
So
perfect landing. That there's no. Hopefully, I've sold you on it as to why I had to put this into the top 10. Like, there's a lot of good games out there, but this to me was just one of the best of the year. So
yeah, look, I didn't fight too hard, and the only reason I did was, you know, because there's so much other good stuff out there this year.
Awesome. So that's Portal Execution. That gets the 15 thumbs up from me.
Yeah. And you really should get that looked at, Trevor, because most people only have 2 thumbs.
I've just got a bag of them.
All right. Well, the next one that we're going to talk about, Sleepy Robot Academy. And look, I'm not usually one for these like dating game kind of things, but I feel like there's one every year that comes out that kind of just like breaks away from the pack and from the common tropes, and then gives you something a bit different. You know, so because we've had like Boyfriend Dungeon and like Dream Daddies and that sort of thing, and along those lines, Sleepy Robot Academy it gave me something a bit different that I wouldn't usually play the dating game sort of thing.
But a robot love story, you know, where Emmanuel got the emotion chip installed, and just that next scene was just
yeah, and you jumped right to the heart of it, like key scene, and the fact that up until that point you'd assumed he had the emotion chip, and so it goes back and colors all your past experiences with him. I mean, that gave me shivers. Like, that was an amazing moment. And then just the artwork that's that simple animation. You know, obviously these games are often somewhat short on animation, but they did that beautifully hand drawn animation of just the way he kind of lit up. But look, even just going back to the intro and the way that they just had you buy into the concept so easily, so early on. You know, you sort of weren't. It didn't feel odd that you were a human trying to date robots at this school.
Oh my God! Like, it's just there's just so many places that I thought that this would go.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I never would have pegged that, you know, human robot relations would become the norm, like by the end of the game. Like, it felt wrong going in, and it was just also right coming out.
And even though they had you, like, I mean, they called the tutorial literally Human Robot Relations 101, which made sense, and it was sort of built into the story like that because, you know, your character, this was the first time they were meeting a human character to this academy, and they sort of, so you essentially, the way they still had it work, even though you're basically taking a class for robots to learn how to talk to humans, but you're sort of having to see it from their point of view straight away. So I think that's really what made it work.
Definitely. What did you think about the mentor?
Yeah. That was sort of the one thing I think that let it down a bit. 'Cause they had J0 Seth throw, I think that's how you pronounce it. That was never one of the voiced lines. Well, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But
they voice so little, like, that's the only gripe I have.
I wish that they had the budget to voice more because the voice acting was great. When they obviously did some of those key scenes. But, I mean, it kind of goes to show then that, like, that whole mentor arc, I think that could have been cut. The whole thing could have been cut. He wasn't a great character. He sort of was just saying things too obvious, you know, coming in and reminding you that you're a human and, you know, making it seem like it almost seemed counterproductive because he was so against human robot relationships.
Even though he's the one that kept on saying you have to put on the cardboard box that makes you look like a robot.
Well, that's it. Well, and it was this weird thing. It was almost like he's almost trying to bring you, he's trying to make you a robot so he can feel better about you having relationships with the other robots. But at the same time is giving you the tools to do so, even though he doesn't agree with it. Anyway, I think, you know, it was obviously meant to be a bit of an analogy for bigots in the real world and different, you know, and that sort of thing. But it didn't really work for me.
No. I think the reason, and I think we're both in agreement here as to why this belongs in our top 10 is because the ending scene, of which you could tell they had run out of budget in the voicing, but it was still the most emotional thing. Well, no, let's not spoil it.
You don't want to we can give a spoiler warning if you want to.
Okay, spoiler warning.
Right. 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so when robot PL1009...
Yep.
Just give me a second. When they sacrificed their programming for Jay.
Yeah.
It was just beautiful. And spoiler out.
Oh, I don't get to respond.
Okay, spoiler back on. Spoiler back on.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm glad they kind of left it open. They had the command prompt kind of flashing there. So you kind of knew that, okay,
they lingered on that black screen for
maybe they can
just a little bit too long.
Maybe they can be restored. It was almost the Inception moment of, you know, is something going to be typed? Yeah.
Cursor and prompt.
But I agree, like, and I think this is probably a common theme with our games tonight because it matters so much, is just strong endings. There's so many games that in the end game kind of just drag on or they don't know how to wrap things up. But this one
actually ended almost a little bit before it should have. Like, it came out so strong, but
I think they kind of had to. I think they kind of had to do that. I feel like it would have been riding a fine line to really
to keep
to
it
really
going.
keep it going. So yeah, for me, it was the perfect timing. I can see why you'd want more just because it's like
Brilliant storytelling.
you just find yourself immersed in the story. But it's like a good book, right? You don't want it to end. But no, they did well. And spoiler out.
Yeah, spoiler out. Okay. Let's talk about the voicing for a little bit.
All right, quick, because we should move on to our next game.
So there were only 5 lines in the entire game. I know it seems weird, but only
it seemed like way more.
Felt like so many more, but 5 lines.
I guess they were just such key
voice
lines.
acted.
Yeah.
Yeah. And 3 of them were Jay.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Did you know that the developer did both Jay and PL's lines?
Really? Jeez.
So
that
different.
was so different. Yeah, exactly. That was so different. I can't believe that. That's wild.
I believe he put it through a vocoder though.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to. But yeah, like, I mean, sole developer, like, what else are you going to do? But an amazing kind of achievement for a single developer to put that out. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
all right.
Suppose we better go on to
our 4th game.
Our 4th game. Okay, I'm just going to blow this out there. MTV's Tetris Legends.
I cannot believe that I let you put this into the top 10. But you played it a lot more than I did.
I did.
I definitely put in a few hours, but I think I saw on your Steam, like, what,
400? No, 400.
400. I was going to say 100.
400
hours.
hours.
It was more than 100. So you're at 400 now. Jeez.
Yeah, I kind of didn't sleep all through like April through August. Like, it was just MTV's Tetris Legends every single night.
So, I mean, you were saying to me that that you were kind of comparing it to like the Guitar Hero and Rock Band era, where just the way that like bringing in licensed music, but doing so much with it.
Like playing Tetris while, you know, you got to choose your character of one of the MTV legends. And, you know, you got to play online or you could.
Who was your favorite to play? Like, did you have a go-to? I
did have a couple of go-tos. When they added the Dave Mustaine, you know, Rock the Vote, because, you know, he was an MTV legend back in the day.
Yeah.
I must admit, I purchased that straight away and I was playing with him a lot. But then just some of the time, I think I was playing one of the people from like, you know, that 17 going on pregnant or whatever.
Well, you know, because it's such a like nostalgic thing for me, I couldn't go past playing Beavis.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it did get a bit annoying.
Daria did get a lot of
it did get a bit annoying that every time you'd get a line, it'd be like, Cornholio. But I don't know, it's just made me laugh.
But having been able to play online and then coming up against, like, if you were playing Beavis and someone else was playing Butthead, the way they'd actually, you know, they talk together and the commentary would actually be like.
They did add a ton of like custom stuff for those sort of like synergizing of different characters.
Like, at one stage, I was playing Dave Grohl and I was playing against, can't remember his name, but he was playing Jack Black.
Yeah.
And of course the whole Tenacious D thing came up. And so Dave Grohl all of a sudden turned into the devil and like.
Oh man, that's awesome. I did get a few like that. But like when you just, nothing, I don't think I saw any quite like that, but just like when you'd get members of the same band, coming in, I did see, I think it was when I was playing against you actually, when you were playing, Dave Mustaine and I was playing James Hetfield and they like got into a punch up just about.
Yeah.
That was hilarious and distracting.
Distracting, especially because, you know, there was Symphony of Destruction playing at the same time as Enter Sandman, and
but the way that they
didn't
remix them like in that way and they made them work so well together.
It's because
I don't know how they did it.
It was all in one ear and then all in the other ear, so they weren't actually fighting against each other. It was like you could just listen to one side a little bit more than the other.
Yeah, for sure. But they're still, I mean, I think they must have tweaked them a bit to really make them work, so they weren't completely overwhelming each other. But we should get into some of the gameplay because, like, for those who haven't played,
it's Tetris.
You probably can't
and
imagine
Tetris is
how
fucking awesome.
You can add sort of music gameplay into Tetris, but I don't know, it just works.
It really does. Like
timing your drops.
If you time your drops, if on one of the big crashes you get a Tetris, where you drop the big line piece down, you get like extra points. And of course, the main part of the game is playing it in multiplayer mode. That's where if you've got everything timed perfectly, your lines get added to their
end up on the other player's board.
Yeah, on their board.
Pushes them up.
But it doesn't do that unless it's in time. So it's all about like, they must have spent so much money on the music videos because every single stage had like a music video that it felt 3D rendered. Like it didn't.
I know I think they must have like somehow recreated. I don't know if they used an AI or something, but like they recreated such.
They
some
felt
of those
real, but
music.
they definitely
There's like
had
parallax.
depth. They had depth to them, and it was really, really good.
Yeah, they never showed like a full like 3D walkthrough or anything. Like I don't think they built the whole thing, but they'd altered it enough to give it depth. It was wild.
Yeah. So MTV Tetris Legends, that was definitely one of my favorites for the year.
Yeah. No, that's a good one. All right. What are we up to? Our fifth. We're coming up on the halfway point. And look, we're going into some of the big hitters of this year. Like everyone knows the big RPGs and stuff that come out.
Yeah.
And so Spellbinders Aftermath.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's on everyone's list this year. So no surprise, but we loved it as well. It's a shame they got
snubbed at the Game Awards though. Like that, they got robbed.
I couldn't believe that. Like, I mean, look, there were some good games. There were some other good RPGs that came out this year. What ended up winning? I can't remember for best RPG this year.
Skyrim again, I think.
What's that? They shouldn't be allowed to do that. Just release another version of Skyrim on some new platform. Anyway,
I don't know. That's our regular joke.
Yeah, I know.
It probably wasn't.
Whatever beat it out. I'm sure it was worthy, but to me, Spellbinders Aftermath, like for a sequel as well, to just eclipse the original this much.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like often sequels will fall flat, but this just did a good job. And like, I don't know, the magic system just as one small part. And I mean, obviously in a Spellbinders game, you need a good magic system, but they'd improved so much upon that. And it just felt so natural to cast the spells while still really having a good idea of like how much of the different types of mana you had and stuff to know what you could cast at any point.
Yeah. In fact, I kind of like that by the end of the game, the mana cost wasn't really even coming into play anymore. Like you'd grown into such a powerful wizard that it no longer mattered, whether you had the spell slots or the mana. It was just free.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the things I loved about it is that exactly it felt like you were becoming so powerful. Like so many RPGs, the numbers go up, but essentially the game is the same at the start and the beginning. You've got maybe a
same
couple
difficulty
more
all the way
systems.
through. Yeah.
But this, it essentially by the time you were at the end, like, you weren't worried about balancing your mana types and how they were being mixed because you just had such power and control over it all.
Yeah. But also the fact that you could choose whichever school of magic that you wanted to go down. You wanted to go down a little bit more, transfiguration and all that sort of stuff. You could turn people into mice and all that sort of stuff and just stomp on them.
There's so much depth there. It's amazing. Like I started playing through again, this time as like a fire/plant magic mage.
You wouldn't think that would synergize, but
no, but it's incredible. You can create these epic spells where you can like fire out vines and then just set them alight.
Set them all on fire. So they're entangled in the vines and then they're on fire. Yeah. Like they can't move anywhere.
Exactly.
That actually does synergize really well.
But it's completely different to my first run through.
Yeah.
Where I did play like a mostly, transfiguration and like, what was it called? With just levitation and shit. Just like I can't remember. There's a name for it, but I've forgotten what it is. The yellow one. The yellow type. That, like, it plays completely differently. The strategies in the battles are just completely different.
My one complaint was that they did shoehorn in the multiplayer mode. I mean, I was amazed they had that at all, honestly. Why do they need so much else they had such a strong single player game. But I suppose that's what you get when, you're bought out by EA and they want.
And that was a late game thing. Like, they'd had so much of this developed and then, that's why there was all the delays as well. But look, worth the delays to me. I mean, I'm not the sort of gamer who gets pissed off at delays because I want the best game to come out. And in this case, it was definitely worth it. What did you think of the story, though?
Loved it. Loved it. Look, taking a necromancer and turning him into like the funny sidekick. was like, you wouldn't have thought that would be, a good move. But oh my God, he gave out some of the funniest lines of the entire thing.
It was funny. It was a funny game. Like, you can't say that about many games in general, much less RPGs, really. But like, having Dilbo there the whole time, pretty much, except for that one section.
Which again, spoilers.
Yeah, we don't want to spoil. But yeah, that added a whole thing to it, and even like commentating through the battles, and he'd run off and hide behind a tree, and like even just the situational AI that they had for that, like, he never got in. I never saw him like get in the way. He could be damaged. I did see him get hurt a few times, but like, he was smart about where he'd hide and just like yell quips out at you.
But I loved that if you got to know him really well later on in the games, like as you defeated each enemy, he just raised them from the dead and they'd be fighting on your side now. And it's like, that's something that, you had to work at. It's kind of, that felt very Mass Effect-y, that, you had to do his side quest and all that sort of stuff.
I didn't grow my party that way. I knew that was an option because I saw, like, but I didn't really I didn't really develop Dilbo's, like, skills that much.
You didn't go down his side mission.
No, I went
side mission was one of the best parts of the whole game.
Well, but did you do the spy network stuff? Because that's how I filled out my party.
Yeah. I missed that on the first go through. Maybe I'll do that on the next go through.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I mean, again, one of the amazing, like, there's just so many options. But, with that one, you're essentially like, as you come into each town, you start, like, you can talk to the bartender and you kind of get this whisper network going on, and you sort of rise through the ranks of the spies. And that gives you access to new people who will join your party and stuff, and fight with you. So, yeah, that was, because for me, that was just the sort of character I felt like playing. I felt he was a bit more, more sneaky.
Dilbo's side mission was a little bit controversial, and, I suppose we should talk about the fact that, he has a zombie girlfriend.
There was some weird takes on that I saw.
But the thing is, in this case, yes, he normally has control over any parts of the dead that he
they didn't
brings
play
back.
It off as him.
This zombie wasn't brought back by him, so he's got no control over the zombie. He just happened to fall in love with a zombie, and like it's not a weird thing. It's a really loving story, and
look, I can see where. I can see where the difficulty comes in, because technically she was she could be controlled by someone else, and there are obviously consent issues and that sort of thing there. I certainly don't think the relationship with Dilbo itself was problematic.
But no, that's the thing. That's what everyone's missing. Dilbo beats the other necromancer, and through some mystical sort of stuff that happens that I don't want to give too much away, she gets released into full autonomous mode.
So after that point, she
chooses to be with him because, I think, and I may have got this wrong because of the translation issues, but I think it was actually his like girlfriend from before.
Oh, really? No, I didn't catch that. But like I said, I didn't follow all of Dilbo's missions. So,
well, translation issues aside, amazing 9
game.
9
out of 10 game, I would say. Like, there's no question about this one between us that this was going to be in the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's do number 6.
Okay, counting down into the second half.
Yep.
You knew I'd have to do this. There's no surprise to you that I loved disturbed bass fishing. It's who would have thought the band Disturbed and bass fishing could work together, but
this was probably the one that I fought the hardest on. Because I love Disturbed and I have for a long time, but the game didn't really click with me.
Dude, it's because you pirated it. If you bought it, you'd get the controller. You'd get the peripherals.
Well, but I'd read that wasn't all that necessary.
It changed the game.
Right, sell us on it. Sell us on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you remember, like back in the day with the Dreamcast, they had the fishing rod controller and all that sort of stuff. And it was like, whenever you do the casting, it never felt quite right because it was just you'd launch it out and it would go a predetermined amount of distance. Well, this had like a mercury trigger in it. So it could tell how far you were actually casting the rod. And I somewhat got that just by like the flick mechanics as well and the controller because they supported that too. Yeah, but they had, because, this was one of the Switch's big games. They had the awesome, what we used to joke about, the
rumble,
the rumble with how many ice cubes
in was it? Premium rumble? I don't think that's
whatever it was. You put the Joy-Con into it, and you could tell when you had a little nibble or when you had a full bite and all that sort of stuff. And you'd have to pull back and you'd be fighting against it at all times. And the fact that you could even use for the first time in a long time, the VR attachment for the Switch. The
Labo thing.
The Labo thing.
Yeah.
It came with a free, Labo thing that you could fold up and put on your face.
Yeah.
So it was like you were there. And then you had David Draymond. Then you'd had David Draymond.
Yeah.
Coaching you all the way through.
Yeah. Well, I got that bit because I did play it on an emulator because, I don't think I had my Switch at that point. So
yeah,
when I played it and I didn't go back to it again. It's you got to admit it's a weird pull though to have Disturbed. I mean, have they even released an album in the past couple of years?
No, because they were working on this game.
Right.
They believed in it so much. They believed in this game so much.
Are they gamers or are they just like fishing?
I think it's both.
Both.
But anyway, one of my favorite moments is I'm in the big fishing tournament. I'm pulling in a fish and it's about to get away. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to feel down. I hear David Draymond just in the boat beside me go, ooh, and it's it got me back
almost as a reaction.
Almost as a reaction because he knew that I was about to lose the fish.
Yeah.
And it gave me the confidence to win that tournament. And then they did a concert at the end and they played all the hits.
I did find all of the sort of references to their songs a bit jammed in. They didn't really feel natural. It was like you throw out your line and then he's like, all right, drop it down with the sickness. It kind of didn't really, didn't really fit. And although I did in that bonus level, where you get to use the dynamite and then it ends on 10,000 fish in the air. That was amazing.
10,000 fish in the air.
Yeah, that was a good moment.
And slow motion as they
they're all falling down.
I had shivers.
That would have been good. That would have been good in VR.
That was amazing.
I can see that I missed out there.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway.
Okay. Your next one.
All right. This was a big one this year.
Mm-hmm.
Monster Ego.
It was big in more ways than one.
It was big in a lot of ways.
The whole thing is about the monstrous ego of this character, but you can.
I can. Yeah. Well, no, of course. I mean, it was such a quirky game. I'm actually surprised it did get such a wide critical reception, given sort of that it's a bit of a quirky thing from a smaller studio, but the metaphor of this person's of the main character's ego, turning them into this monster, and then putting that in the form of a side-scrolling beat 'em up. Like you just wouldn't come up with that sort of thing. But it just worked so well.
The customization, like,
yeah.
Oh, it was just amazing that every single one of these monsters could look like they were like hand drawn. It didn't look like you were just chucking stuff onto these monsters just for the sake of it. It was that they all blended in so well. Like,
well, and just that you could customize, that you're customizing the enemies even in this game because of the way that the ego was generating and growing. It was like you're sort of customizing how your character saw the world.
Yeah.
At least that's what I got from it. But it's kind of made it, even though so many of them were these, cookie cutter, beat 'em up enemies, it made it that little bit more personal. Like you were fighting someone that you knew, or at least the representation of them. Oh,
yeah.
What I loved about the customization is the way that they would sort of pick up on your choices. So like when you give, the cookie cutter minion-y sort of characters, a particular type of hat or particular clothes or coloring or whatever, that then the big boss at the end of that level would have, like, it wasn't the exact same. They wouldn't just take those options and apply it to the boss. Like there was different stuff, but it had the same style. And so that, I don't know, that was just cool to me, the way that worked.
What I liked was, again, I mean, this seems to be something that happened, that was going on very, very early on in tonight's episode. The ray tracing that they managed to do in a 2D environment and get, just the way those street lamps looked like.
Well, what impressed me is, because it was a 3D world with hand animated 2D characters in it then. But again, same way that the customizations fit in so well, it was just seamless the way that it fit into the 3D world. Like the shaders, the
refractions off the glass and,
Yeah, so it had these elements of realism in there, but in this 2D world.
I've got to say that my favorite level was in the funhouse. The room of mirrors, where I don't know how many bounce reflections they had, but there was just
well, but not only did they bounce the backgrounds around, but then the characters were different in the mirrors, like their reflections changed. So it wasn't even just a straight ray trace. Like they had to change it up. So yeah, I mean, technically, I don't even want to think about how they did that. But visually, it was a feast. It was amazing, and the fact that they managed to keep that going without it being like super confusing, and I mean, it's obviously supposed to be somewhat confusing, but like you could tell, where your character was essentially and where they were supposed to attack and whatever. Like it didn't just become this mess of color.
I mean, should we talk about like the main antagonist of the game?
Yeah, of course.
I think it was like when you first see, the intro video and you're seeing, this character and their third grade teacher, because obviously you get to choose your character. But then for the third grade teacher to be the arch nemesis, like that. Yeah. That was pretty impressive. Like,
I mean, I like the way they tied it into the story though. Like that was where these
that's where the ego started.
Yeah. This is exactly. This is where these sort of personality challenges, and it obviously wasn't her that caused them, like, but they were exacerbated so much by,
I don't know. I think there was a little bit of darkness below the surface, that this third grade teacher was stroking the ego of this character to get it to be more stronger and almost as if, they knew, like they had extra knowledge.
I think to me it seemed like they selected your character, like, from that opening intro, it was you that they picked out of the class to sort of stay after and tell you, how amazing you're doing. And so I think there was definitely that darkness there, and it was a confronting kind of story in that way, given your age at the time and that sort of thing. But then, like jumping it forward to kind of 10 years later, and you're just this complete egomaniac, and finally kind of coming to terms with it and realizing how much it's hurting everyone around you. And then essentially like dealing with that, like the game's essentially therapy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it
was really done.
It was
really
good.
well done. Yeah.
My next one.
Yeah. We should start moving through these a little bit quicker.
Yeah. For people who know me pretty well, I don't usually like strategy games at all, but Galactic Hospital was just like, it was just
I love this
amazing how cool it was to like be doing surgery on different aliens and having to know their biology by, I mean, sometimes you have to judge a book by their cover. Yeah. Like they came in and they've got three tentacles and like 2 normal limbs. Okay. You can go to this biology textbook and know that you need this particular surgeon to work on them because they specialize in arthropods.
So firstly, this belongs in the top 10 just for getting you excited about a strategy game. Definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's exactly that did it. And just that you could get to the point where like it was all internally consistent enough that an alien could come in with a configuration that like of body parts essentially that you hadn't seen before, but
and there's no manual for, but
you knew enough about how everything fit together by that point that you could make the right decision.
You could get Dr. Gerald, Dr. and Phyllis. They could all jump in the room together and work on the individual pieces. Like, it was just like, and it really opened my mind.
I've never seen a strategy game. Because, like, there've been plenty of hospital games, but they're always about, like, so much of the administrative stuff of the hospital, which I think is what bores you about it. But having this essentially just being more around strategizing the running of this surgery and, like, emergencies coming in and that you might get interrupted. Like, you've got a surgery running and someone else comes in, you're like, oh, shit, the surgeon that we need for this is already in another surgery. Like, how do we deal with this? I think that just really... made it stand out.
Okay. I don't think we need to say much more about that one. What I do want to go through is honourable mentions before we get into our final 2.
Oh, we're up to. Okay. I hope you've been keeping track.
I've been keeping track.
All right. Honourable mentions. Okay, so we're just going to quickly go through some of the great games that did come out this year that didn't make it into our final 2.
How this is going to work is you're going to give a title and a quick rundown of what the game was.
All right, just like 5-10 second rundown. Okay. All right. Do you want me to go first?
You go first.
All right. Deranged Cyborg Pioneer.
Yep.
Like just coming onto a new planet, essentially like an Oregon Trail kind of deal, but you're a cyborg and you've got, you're finding body parts and stuff to attach to yourself. Like just, so good.
Fantastic sex base. Now, it was one of the more adult oriented ones, but it was just a great base building thing, but you got to also build sex dungeons. I mean, who doesn't love that? Yeah.
Cloud fight, couch co-op in the clouds. Like, what more can you ask for? Like, we played that a ton.
Mm-hmm. Spooky Aerobics Frenzy. The fact that they put like an aerobic game and a horror game in like a frenetic sort of thing, like, it was great. Chef's kiss.
Another chef's. That's the second chef's kiss.
That's not the second. That's like.
I mean, it is our game of the year. So they're all chef's kisses, but
yeah.
Pillage of Opportunity.
Oh, yep.
Just like this fleet of pirates coming to a new world and pillage it, like just the whole up and down the coast.
Mm.
Yeah, it was very satisfying in a weird, horrible way.
And my final honourable mention of this year is Mystic Frisbee Horror. Like
another horror one for you. You do like your horror games.
I don't like playing them. I like watching them.
Yeah.
Like I've got a love-hate relationship. But the fact that this was a frisbee from another dimension, and when you threw it, it like had like Cthulhu like horrors that went out at people. It was like a pretty cool thing, and then you could bring everything, bring the frisbee back to you. You just had to make sure that the tentacles were backing off the frisbee at that time.
Yeah. And I've just got one. This isn't an honorable mention because this game was fucking terrible, but just as like the weirdest game that came out this year, Celebrity Spider Collection, like just pulling random celebrities' faces and putting them on spiders that you then had to hunt down around this house. Like, I don't know how they got the rights to the likenesses of all these big name celebrities. Like, how did they sell them on this?
I actually think
it's related to NFTs or something because
I think what they actually did though is they did like a guerrilla filming sort of thing of, you know, taking a Zoom recorder, because I swear some of those words that people were saying, it didn't feel that natural. It looked like they sounded like they just sort of
like
been
they were in the
pieced
middle
together from
of the
conversations.
conversation. Yeah, it was. This has definitely got something to do with some scam. It's probably crypto related. I don't know, but it came out. It was a game that came out and people played it. I don't know. It was weird.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
All right, should we get into our final two?
So you've kept this one from me, and I've kept my one from you.
Yep. We gave each other one each that we sort of didn't argue over. We just got one that we got to essentially bring in without any vetoes.
Yeah, I'll believe me, and there were some vetoes.
Oh yeah.
I barely got missed it, and you said veto.
We have fun.
Yeah, we do.
All right, who's going first? Do you want mine
go
first? This, I don't know. This one's kind of hard to talk about. I really liked it, and there's a reason I picked this one as my one. You couldn't veto. My very own fire machine was the title.
That piece of shit.
Come on, I thought this game. It did some really interesting things with, I mean, first, just the fire propagation mechanics obviously worked really well.
Mm-hmm.
I know that it had some elements of like building and strategy sort of stuff, which is probably why which is why, you know, one of the reasons I know that you don't like it. But just like having these towns kind of build up and you could influence them in different ways, and then coming in as this little kid to just fucking burn them down. I don't know. There was something so cathartic about it, I felt. It was one of these games that I just like, because I have games that I put on a podcast and I just play a game that kind of doesn't require deep story and that sort of thing. It's
yes, but most of them don't require arson.
Yeah, but you kind of have to look. It's more about cleansing.
You do realize that there's a big segment of that game in which you have to call the fire engines away so that they don't get to your building.
I know. I played a lot of it, but it's just one of these. It's almost a Zen game for me. It's just like this city builds up and it's pollution and it's horrible things. You see people fighting on the streets and stuff, and then you just fucking come in and just burn it all down to nothing. Right. And this strategy, right? Like you have to set the fires at the right place. And like you said, you have to call the fire engines to the right parts of town so they can't get there fast enough before the blaze but just watching watching those fire fronts when you get it right. And when it's past that point of no return, just like, just come straight across this fucking hell city.
I've got to say, the one thing I did like about it was they got the backdraft physics really quite well. Like, not the actual fire physics, but the physics from the movie Backdraft.
It felt, well, that's it. And that's part of it, is so much of it is just around the feel of it all, right? Just, you can almost feel the heat radiating from your screen. I don't know. I loved it.
You could almost feel the heat radiating from your computer as it
calculated all the fire physics.
It cooked it. Like, you know the reason why I don't like this is because it cooked one of my PCs this year.
Yeah, I know. You've kind of got a vendetta there against it, but anyway, that was my game. I really enjoyed it. I'm probably going to play some more after this.
Probably.
Ironically, it's my cool down game.
Well, you're really not going to like mine. For the third year running,
yeah.
No One Can Stop the Office EX. That's right. They released a new edition this year.
I wish they'd stop doing that so you wouldn't have the opportunity to put it into your fucking top 10 list.
I know.
So what did they, because I don't even fucking play this. What did they add
to this version? Another whole act to this point and click adventure game. Okay. Just in case you haven't listened to like any of our episodes before and you haven't heard me rave about this game, No One Can Stop the Office. It's set in the early 2000s when Ricky Gervais is trying to stop the American Office from being created. He finds out after doing all this stuff that no one can stop the Office, and he becomes an executive producer on it. And it's a true story.
Usually you and I share humor in a big way, and I can get behind some of the weirder humor things out there. You know,
like
you and I
like your
watch like Hug
Garth
the Sun
Marenghi's Dark Place
together, or you know, some of these things that are not for everyone. But this, I don't get it. It's just stupid to me. I don't get it. So they added a whole other act.
New act.
Without spoiling too much, what's the gist?
So it happens in between seasons 2 and 3.
Okay.
And it's about, like, Ricky Gervais is getting ready to do some work, you know, with Steve Carell.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, they go on a road trip together. And it is some of the funniest, like, most awkward stuff that you've ever sort of heard. And it feels like, you know how Jacob Janerka was going to make that Seinfeld game?
Yeah.
Well, it feels like this is like the precursor to that. It's a game where nothing happens, but that's the beauty of it. Like it feels very cringeworthy. Like,
are there puzzles?
Like
though?
The Office? No. It's like an interactive fiction, but it's all about this trip that they take together.
Part of like, and look, in general, I love point and click adventures. I quite enjoy interactive fiction. You know, we had a dating game as one of the, it just feels, well, for one, what I don't like is the way that they force you to go back and follow every dialogue path. Like, it just feels like this very like, oh, we want you to see all of our brilliant writing. It's not all brilliant. Like to make you do, and I know some people like that because they're such completionists, but they want to see everything a game has to offer the first time through. But to me, it just takes away from like the actual story.
Well, what I love about the fact that you have to go back and listen to all the dialogue, because of course you want to listen to it all. It's played by the original cast, except for Jim. They didn't pay for
get John
all
Krasinski.
But they got everyone else. Like Phyllis is back.
Is Phyllis in this new section?
She's at the start.
Right, before they hit the road.
Yeah. But
I do love me some Phyllis.
Yeah. But
she's the best part of those games.
Yeah. I mean, she alone, like, carried Acts 2 and 3. Like,
I didn't play them all the way through, but
that's within the first, like, 8 hours of the game. Like,
I couldn't.
There's only 17 acts.
Don't you find
you could have played them all.
Annoying that because they make you go back and listen, like, they don't just make you go back, like, you have to listen to the whole conversation up to that, like, for those last few bits up to that conversation tree again. Like, why don't they almost should just make it an animated movie if they're not going to let you actually make reasonable choices.
What I love is that you can go down and, I mean, the new system that they added in last year's SX version.
Yeah.
Oh, and the less that we talk about the DS version, that's just, like, that was horrible. It wasn't even voiced. Like, there's no point about that. But the SX version that they released last year, they actually added a counter so you could actually sort of see how many lines in this act you've already listened to, and you just have to go hunting for those last couple of lines, and it's...
Right, well, that's good at least, because when I played it, like, there were definitely some sections, and again, because you have to find all the dialogue, because the fucking makers want you to read all of their amazing jokes, I was stuck in some areas for ages because it essentially pixel hunting because I couldn't find those last lines. But so that's a benefit at least. And look, to be fair, I know this like started as a fan game and sort of had enough popularity that they managed to, rather than just get shut down like so many of these things do, actually get picked up and licensed properly. Hence the voice acting and stuff coming in later on.
But just, didn't you love, I suppose you may not have got to Act 9 when they brought in all the people from the US and UK office and they all did like that whole act together. Like,
I don't know. That does sound good. I guess I'll maybe with this EX version, I'll jump back in, but
yeah, just make sure you stay away from DSEX because that's just, that was the 3DS EX. It's still not voiced. Like,
yeah.
The Switch version is. So,
all right. Well, maybe I'll give it a go. That's a weird one to end our top 10 on, but like we said, no particular order.
No particular order. So, well, like, just to sort of wrap it up, so many good games this year.
Like, for being in the middle of a fucking pandemic.
We've been spoiled.
We've been spoiled. Like, you know, if you needed something to do sitting at home in isolation, you had it. There was just so many options. So, yeah, I don't know. Back next week, we'll have our usual stuff, all of our gaming news and chatting about the latest hints and tips. But, yeah.
And, of course, the welcome return of Ben Spews.
Yep, next week I'll be spewing about the new Guardians of the Galaxy game. It's really good. So you've got that to look forward to. But until then, I think we'll finish up this episode. So, look, if you want to find us online, check out any of our previous episodes, go to podchaser.com/bitstorm. Check them all out. They're all exactly like this one, where we are just a regular gaming podcast. And they're not about improvised game design that we come up with from random words, because that would be weird.
It would be. And if you like the song that we play at the start and end, that's Mount Defiance off the album Containment Failure by the band Kurodas.
That's right. So thank you again for joining us this week on Bitstorm. I'm Ben Slinger.
I'm Trevor Scott.
Just storm on.